This is from James Hillman, Alchemical Psychology, concerning the stone. The obstacular wisdom of the stone confronts and demands response. It acts like a learned teacher disguised in ordinary dress. Alchemy speaks of the stone as the lapis philosophorum. What is the philosophy? What is its wisdom? It is the wisdom of the ultimate actuality of the singularity of individuals, first put forth by that subtle thinker of the medieval church, John Duns Scotus, and called by him hexity, or thisness. It is the wisdom that logically establishes each thing as itself, individualized. In fact, hexity for Scotus is the principle of individualism. For Charles Sanders Peirce, hexidus, which he calls secondness, is the shock of experiencing the brutal fact of the other. We are constantly bumping up against hard fact. The stubborn, indubitable presence of thisness provides a founding rock for William James' philosophical favoring of eachness over idealism's allness, oneness, and wholeness. David Ignatow put the hexity of the stone into a short poem. Each stone its shape, each shape its weight, each weight its value in my garden as I dig them up for spring planting. And I say, lifting one at a time, there is joy here in being able to handle so many meaningful differences. The factual confrontational eachness of the stone teaches the mind to study and appreciate each contrary event more closely beyond comparison, concept, or category, and as well to become wily and mercurial in searching for ways through and around each obstacle. There is a third kind of movement, besides the organic and the intellectual. The quality of this motion we might call the sensitivity of the stone. Sir George Ripley, the Yorkshire alchemist, writing in the second half of the 15th century, tells how to keep a philosopher's stone once you've got one. These stones must be kept by themselves in several glasses or fair boxes in a warm place, or dry at the least, as you would keep sugar, because they are so tender and oily substance as they are apt to dissolve in every moist place, which therefore preserve as is here showed. Let's review Ripley's advice, for it reveals more about the stone than we have so far discovered. First, it is well to keep it warm, a certain gentle attentiveness and affection, like the care one gives a small child or a pet animal. Second, it is sensitive, and so best kept in a glass vessel, present, yet once removed, apart as a precious object, yet in full view. Third, since it is apt to dissolve in every moist place, it must be kept dry. Here we are given the advice dear to philosophers as far back as Heraclitus, who claimed that, though souls love moisture, the dry soul is the best. Evidently, the stone is of such an oily and tender nature that it can melt on any occasion. It is easily affected. Imagine, after all the labor, the goal is not strength, power, and certitude, but a stone, tender, oily, easily dissolved. What sort of stone is this? Ripley explains how the stone becomes oily. By pouring on it, as it were, drop by drop, until the stone be oilish, then congeal it and again imbibe it, and in this manner iterate this work until this stone will flow in fire like wax when it is put upon a plate of copper fiery hot, and not evaporate, and congeal it up until it be hard, white, and transparent, clear as crystal. Ripley is here describing the ceration, a process that makes a substance softer while giving it a waxy appearance, and invented, according to Albertus Magnus, to mollify a body with a view to permit penetration of other substances. Now we have an idea of the goal, that is tender, soft, like sugar, malleable as wax. This stone melts easily. It receives impressions like a tabula rasa, and then just as easily lets them go again. It asks to be affected, penetrated, and because transparent, seen through. As its borders are not fixed, its defense is yielding and its answers always indefinite. It allows itself to be pushed around without altering its substance. Like wax, its condition reacts to the climate of its surroundings. With the warmth of the human touch, it takes the shape of the hands that hold it, remaining nonetheless self-consistent, despite the repeated meltings and congealings that wipe away all the struck and engraved typological characteristics. Any moment offers the fresh start, the innocence of a slate wiped clean. Salve et coagula. I use the term typological characteristics because both words, type and character, refer at their Greek root to defined engraved markings. Ceration, making wax-like, seems intentionally designed to obliterate a psychological episteme of types, traits, characteristics, anything that would rigidify the idea of the goal into categories of knowledge. An oily stone is lighter than water and can float upon it. Christos, Messias, the anointed one who is of oil, walks on water. The oil that walks on water, the stone that floats, gives a wholly surprising idea of the goal should we expect the heavyweight rock of ages emblematic of Senex seriousness. It would seem, therefore, that the stone as goal invites the archetypal program of the Senex, and so the deliberate emphasis upon soft, oily, tender, and waxy subverts the rigidities of the Senex, which always threaten alchemy with petrifications, such as dogma, as images of wise old men and magicians, of scholars of Greek and Arabic, as geometric diagrams and mathematical formulae, as moral remonstrances, pious cautions, and instructive warnings, as long-winded histories and maxims like the Via Longissima, which champions old age, as metaphysical and theological appeals and secret isolate languages, as a reference to the dead, to history, to authoritative masters, as cryptic rebus codes, wisdom initiations, madness, and melancholy, that elaborate paraphernalia of Senex consciousness. Alchemy's true wisdom, it seems to me, is that it is wise to itself, imagining operations of the goal, like ceratio, rotatio, and robedo, which soften, sweeten, excite, loosen, and make impossible any fixed position, thereby countering the Senex propensity to crystallize the goal in doctrinal truths. Let us say the ceratio saves the stone from stoniness, that literalization of its compact density to mean simplicity, strength, solidity, unity, as the symbol dictionaries declare. The stone's oiliness lets it slip that grip of begriff which would capture it. Its waxiness lets it receive endless literalizations without being permanently impressed, subject to change without notice. It is the Senex stoniness, and again I refer to David Miller's exposition, heart of heart and hard of hearing, ungiving and unyielding, stones instead of bread, that seems the major disease of the opus major. If this diagnostic conjecture is right, then we must note carefully maxims and operations that preclude the rigidities, which indicate usurpation of the idea of the goal by the archetypal Senex. One mollifying example is this dictum: as the work goes on toward the lapis, its love will increase. Is this love for the work? Does this increase refer to the progress of love from the vilification and orphanhood of the primary matter through the abject despair and self-hatred of the negrito to the smooth comfort of the lunar albedo? Or does this increase of love symbolize with the higher heat required for the goal? As the work intensifies, the degree of fire becomes doubled and redoubled. Perhaps these are parallels to love's increase, yet the source of this love seems to be the increasing reality of the stone, as if a love rising from the stone. A stone-like love, a love utterly dehumanized, as if there is something about me that loves something about you, like the love of two stones, cool, distant, apathetic, as if our planetary bodies were asteroids sharing a mythical affinity. Rather, I feel this notion of love is not so much cold as simply unconcerned with love, stone-focused rather than love-focused. It is indeed a fevered concupiscence, engaged in a coupling conjunction, soul to soul, as the alchemical images show, naked, sexual, crazy, yet having nothing to do with anybody, anywhere. Let us imagine it as a love of two stones, externally solitary, yet interiorly they are not distant from one another because they are not different. They are akin in their impersonal stony essence, descendants of a common body, Gaia, brothers and sisters, their love, the incestuous passion of kinship libido, that calor inclusus which urges all things, including humans, to participate in the cosmos. We love the world unspeakably because of what burns within our silent, lapidary essence. Gabriel Marcel writes of fidelity as a permanent faith in loving. Alchemy speaks of an aqua permanens, the steady emotional state brought about by the solutio. This love lives and flows regardless of vagrant desires. It is without pathos or that yearning for elsewhere beyond the given. It is without anteros of love returned, a love that lasts like a stone and is constant in soul, whether alive or dead, as the gemstones in our finger rings of loving unions. This is not all of love, of course. nor is this increase of love the transmutation of passion into agape and the person into perfection. No, the lion's paw and the bear's clutch, the eagle's eye and the strutting peacock's pageant are ever active alchemical figures in the heart's imagination. They do not go away, but as the stone ripens, so does the idea of love increase, says the text, referring, I suppose, to the love for the work and the work's love for the worker, the artifacts. For after all, what can possibly sustain the via longisima, the absurdities and loneliness of the opus major of the soul-making, unless it be the love it gives us? Not only do I love this work, not only does my love increase for it and increase the stone, but the stone's increase loves my work. Something firm and forever keeps faith with me. Something in my nature is ever in love with the materials of the world, a libidinal attachment, a desire that alchemical texts call sulfur, ever ready to ignite, a bit of it lurking in every object out there, luring my love to the world of sense and matter, a love that Freud called the object libido. So too, there is something in the world of sense, in the matter with which the artifacts works, that increases its love for the artifacts, drawing him and her passionately into the opus by its increasing love. Curious to find that I am more and more in love as I imagine myself more and more stony, mineralized.